Let me ask you something powerful right now. Something that might change the way you view connection, the way you see love, and the way you see yourself. Have you ever loved someone who kept you at arm's length? You feel the pull, you feel the bond, but they don't always let you in. It's like there's a wall, not made of bricks, but of fear, a fear so old it feels ancient. And you wonder, do they love me, or am I just holding on to a fantasy? Listen to me. There's a kind of love that doesn't look like the movies. It doesn't scream from the rooftops. It doesn't always come with flowers, poems, and romantic gestures. Sometimes it's quieter. It's more subtle. It's deeper. It's a warrior's kind of love. And when someone who is avoidant, someone who's learned to survive by retreating, by hiding their heart, begins to lean in, when they begin to show up, even just a little, that's not weakness. That is power. That is authenticity. That is real love breaking through the armor of fear. Hey, Brewer, this isn't about playing games. This isn't about decoding mixed signals. This is about recognizing divine truth in human behavior. See, avoidance is not a flaw. It's a protection mechanism. It's a response to pain. Somewhere along the line, they learned that closeness can hurt, that being vulnerable can feel like a trap. So they built walls, not to shut you out, but to keep themselves safe. But love, real love, is disruptive. It shakes foundations. It calls the soul higher. And when that avoidant soul begins to show you their rawness, their realness, when they let you see the parts of them they swore they'd keep hidden forever, that's not confusion. That's not a mistake. That's a miracle in motion. Oh, you want a sign they love you? They come back. Even when they're scared, they try again. Even when it's hard, they speak. Even if their voice shakes, they stay. Even when everything in them says run. That is authentic love trying to win over trauma. That is a soul saying, I choose you, even when it's terrifying to do so. But hear me, love is not just about them choosing you. It's about you choosing you too. Because this journey isn't just about being loved. It's about becoming the kind of person who can hold that love with patience, with boundaries, with grace. If you're in the presence of someone avoidant and you're seeing those small cracks in the wall, those glimpses of vulnerability, those moments of truth, those subtle returns, don't underestimate them. That's transformation happening right in front of your eyes. But here's the real kicker. Don't wait for them to prove it. You be the catalyst. You be the one who brings light, not pressure. You show what love can look like when it's free from conditions, but rich with standards. Because when you walk in authentic love, not codependency, not fear, but the kind of love that says, I see you and I still choose you. You're not just loving them. You're healing both of you. You're modeling what it means to haul space for someone's growth while holding space for your own worth. So if you're asking, does this avoidant love me? Don't just look for words. Look for bravery. Look for return. To shift your perspective. If you're connected to someone who's avoidant, don't just measure their love by how open or expressive they are. Measure it by how they choose to keep coming back. Measure it by the friction they push through just to stand still with you. That friction is evidence of growth. That tension is where love is being forged, slowly and powerfully. What looks like inconsistency on the surface might actually be a tug-of-war inside their soul. One part of them is saying, don't get close, you'll lose yourself. The other part, the braver part, the part awakened by you, is saying, stay, try, open. And every time they show up, despite the internal chaos, they're not just loving you, they're healing themselves. That's what love does. It brings up everything that's not love so it can be released. And for the avoidant, that often means facing lifetimes of fear in the space of one relationship. So understand this. When an avoidant chooses consistency, it's never casual. It's not a small shift. It's a profound declaration. It's their way of saying their world is a revolution. It's their heart saying, I trust you more than I fear what could go wrong. And that trust is not automatic. It's earned slowly, moment by moment, through safety, through consistency, through presence. Avoidants don't risk emotional exposure unless something inside them has shifted. unless they believe, even tentatively, that this connection might be different, that you might be different, that maybe, just maybe, they don't have to run anymore. So when they choose to be vulnerable, it's not casual, it's not a performance, it's a conscious decision to challenge every protective instinct they've ever developed. It's them saying, I'm willing to be seen, even if it terrifies me. And that decision, that is love, not the performative kind, not the convenient kind, but the kind that requires courage, presence, and transformation. For the avoidant, vulnerability is the edge of the cliff. It's standing at the brink of emotional exposure and choosing to speak anyway, choosing to reveal a wound, a need, or a hope they've tried to bury. It could be something as simple as saying, I missed you, or as big as I'm scared of losing you because this matters more than I expected. Either way, what they're really saying is, I trust you enough to hold this fragile piece of me. And what's even more powerful, vulnerability, when practiced over time, becomes liberation. The more they do it, the more they feel safe in it. And that safety rewires everything. It allows them to begin replacing fear with love, defense with openness, and detachment with intimacy. So pay attention when they drop their guard. Don't just hear the words, feel the energy behind them. That trembling voice, that hesitant expression, that quiet confession. That's their heart speaking through fear. That's the moment they're letting love lead for maybe the first time. They're not just letting you in, they're letting go of patterns of pain, of protection. Vulnerability becomes a doorway, not just into deeper connection, but into their healing. Because real love isn't about perfection, it's about permission to be seen, to be held, to be real. And when an avoidant offers that to you, they're not just offering love, they're learning how to receive it. When someone with an avoidant attachment style begins to make space for you in their world, it's not just a sign of affection, it's a deeply meaningful act of transformation. You have to understand how sacred that space is to them. For much of their life, they've depended on solitude, independence, and emotional control to maintain a sense of stability. Their world was carefully constructed, a fortress of routines, habits, and boundaries designed to keep them safe from the chaos of emotional dependency. That space wasn't empty, it was protective. So when they begin to shift their life to include you, not just occasionally, but intentionally, you're witnessing the early steps of genuine love. Avoidants don't easily rearrange their lives for anyone. They don't let just anyone in, not because they're cold or uncaring, but because their internal world feels vulnerable when it's shared. It's easier to compartmentalize. It's safer to keep people at a distance, not physically, but emotionally. So when they begin to invite you into that world, when they share their space, their schedule, their inner thoughts, their long-term plans, it's not random, it's deliberate. It's a choice they're making again and again, even if it stretches every part of their comfort zone. Love for an avoidant doesn't always come with overt declarations. It shows up in actions, subtle, consistent, and meaningful. When they start making time for you, adjusting routines to include you, or even showing up when they'd normally withdraw, it means they're choosing connection over isolation. They may not say, I love you, in the way you're used to hearing it, but what they're saying through their effort and presence is you matter enough to change the way I live. You might notice them doing things they once avoided. They may begin inviting you into their personal space or wanting to spend more time together, even if it disrupts their carefully maintained solitude. They might start initiating plans instead of waiting for you to lead. They may open up about work, family, goals, not just as surface-level conversation, but as an invitation into the deeper parts of their reality. These are powerful signs that you're not just passing through their life, you're becoming a part of it. What's especially significant is that making space isn't always about physical presence. It's about emotional inclusion. It's about beginning to allow their internal world to bend and shift to accommodate someone else. That's a massive deal for someone who's been trained, either by life experience, trauma, or learned belief systems, that closeness means loss of control. When they include you in decision-making, share their thoughts before shutting down, or express interest in your well-being when it would have been easier to stay detached, they're rewriting the narrative they've lived by for years. And this doesn't happen all at once. It's a gradual unfolding. Some days it might look like progress, other days like retreat, but even that fluctuation is part of the process. Every time they let you into their inner world, even just a little, it means they're stretching themselves toward love. And not just love for you, but love for themselves as someone worthy of connection, someone safe enough to share their life with another. Real love isn't about someone sweeping in and suddenly changing overnight. Real love, especially with an avoidant, is a series of courageous micro-decisions to try, to stay, to open up even a little. And when they start making consistent space for you, when their life begins to include you as a stable presence instead of a temporary visitor, you're seeing something profound. You're seeing fear surrender to love. You're seeing a heart that's learning how to risk again, not because it's easy, but because you have become worth the risk. For someone with an avoidant attachment style, fear is often the silent architect of their relationships. It builds walls, crafts escape routes, and scripts stories like, if I get too close, I'll lose myself, or if I depend on someone, I'll get hurt. These beliefs don't appear overnight. They're born from emotional wounds, often deep ones, experiences of abandonment, rejection, or growing up in environments where vulnerability was unsafe or unwelcome. These fears get hardwired into the nervous system, so love doesn't automatically feel safe. It feels like a threat to their independence, their identity, their emotional stability. But when authentic love enters their life, real, grounded, patient love, something begins to shift. Slowly, but powerfully. At first, their fear might still call the shots. They may withdraw when things get too intimate. They may seem distant after moments of closeness. This is not because they don't care. It's because their system is doing what it's always done, protecting them. But then something happens. They start to realize that this connection feels different. It doesn't feel manipulative. It doesn't feel smothering. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels stable. It feels steady. It feels safe. And when they begin to feel that safety, not just hear about it, but feel it, something radical begins to occur. Their fear stops winning. It's still there, still whispering old warnings, still pulling on them to retreat or disengage. But now there's a stronger voice rising, the voice of love, the voice that says, stay, try, grow, breathe, Brooke. And this is everything. Because for an avoidant, staying connected despite the fear is one of the most courageous things they can do. It means they're no longer allowing the past to control the present. It means they're choosing intimacy over isolation. And not because it's suddenly easy, but because the love they feel is becoming more compelling than the fear they've carried. You'll start to see it in their behavior. Maybe they reach out after an argument instead of disappearing for days. Maybe they initiate conversations about the relationship instead of avoiding them. Maybe they start to express needs, however awkwardly, instead of pretending they don't have any. These might seem like small shifts to someone else, but for them, these moments are enormous. They're not just changes in behavior, they're changes in belief. Belief that closeness doesn't have to mean danger, that love doesn't have to mean loss, that they can be close to you and still be themselves. This inner transformation is subtle but profound. And it doesn't mean the fear is gone. It means they're no longer letting it lead. That's the key. Fear may still exist in the background, but love is in the driver's seat now. And the more they experience safe, consistent connection, the eater that fear becomes. Because love, when it's authentic, has the power to rewire a person's nervous system. It teaches the body and the mind that it's okay to relax into intimacy. That closeness isn't suffocating, it's healing. So if you see someone who used to pull away now choosing to stay close, if someone who once avoided conflict is now working through it, if someone who feared vulnerability is now starting to open up, it means love is winning. Not just the love they have for you, but the love they are beginning to allow for themselves. Because to stop letting fear control your life is one of the most self-loving things a person can do. And when an avoidant starts doing that, it's not just about being in a relationship, it's about becoming whole. They are no longer protecting their wounds at the expense of their heart. They are learning to live, love, and connect beyond the borders of fear. And that is a sign not only of authentic love, but of transformation at the deepest level. When someone with an avoidant attachment style begins to apologize and take responsibility in a relationship, it's not just an act of maturity. It's a profound expression of love and trust. For avoidants, admitting fault doesn't come easily. It strikes directly at their core fear, the fear of being controlled, criticized, or made to feel inadequate. Deep down, many avoidant individuals associate taking responsibility with losing power, being blamed, or being seen as weak. So rather than owning mistakes, their instinct is to deflect, minimize, or emotionally withdraw. It's not about arrogance. It's about survival. It's about protecting a self-image that was built to avoid shame, pain, or the risk of being emotionally overpowered by others. That's why, when an avoidant starts to say things like, "I'm sorry," or "I see how that hurts you," it means something far deeper than just the words. It means they're no longer letting their fear of emotional vulnerability control the narrative. They're choosing to connect, to repair, and to value the relationship over their own internal defense systems. This isn't a casual moment. It's a pivotal shift in how they relate to intimacy. Avoidants often grew up in environments where expressing needs or admitting mistakes led to consequences, rejection, ridicule, or emotional abandonment. So they learned to shut down, to become self-reliant, and to avoid anything that might trigger shame. Owning their part in a conflict feels like stepping into emotional exposure, the very thing they've spent years avoiding. It feels dangerous. It feels like giving someone else power over them. So when they begin to offer accountability, it means they trust you deeply. It means they believe that you won't weaponize their vulnerability. It means they feel emotionally safe enough to take off the armor. And here's the truth. Accountability is one of the most authentic ways an avoidant expresses love. It says, "This relationship matters to me more than my ego, than my defenses, more than being right." When they start doing this consistently, acknowledging hurt they caused, reflecting on their behavior, even initiating conversations after conflict, you are witnessing emotional growth. You're witnessing the early steps of a person learning how to love in a way they never knew was possible. You might see this growth show up as quiet, almost clumsy efforts. Maybe they don't get it perfect. Maybe their apology is awkward, or their attempt at responsibility still has some defensiveness around the edges. That's okay. What matters is the intention. They're moving toward you instead of away. They're trying, which for an avoidant often means pushing against years of emotional programming that told them, never admit fault. It's not safe. And in choosing to take responsibility, they're not just repairing the relationship. They're healing themselves. They're learning that being wrong doesn't mean being unloved. That conflict doesn't have to end in abandonment. That closeness can survive imperfection. This is how authentic love becomes transformational. It opens the door to repair, to growth, to a deeper connection that isn't built on perfection, but on presence and humility. What's most important to remember is this. Avoidants don't take these steps unless they care deeply. If they didn't love you, they wouldn't bother. They'd disconnect, blame you, or ghost the situation entirely. So when they come back, when they look you in the eye and say, "That was on me," even if it's rare, even if it's subtle, it's a sign that love is reshaping the way they see themselves and others. They're not just loving you, they're evolving for you. And while it may not always look romantic on the surface, this kind of love is grounded, sincere, and incredibly brave. It's the kind of love that doesn't just promise connection, it proves it. And for someone who once believed emotional safety was impossible, that proof is everything. When someone with an avoidant attachment style chooses you, not just once, but over and over again, it's one of the clearest, most powerful signs that they feel real, authentic love for you. For avoidants, choosing someone isn't something they do casually. It doesn't come from impulse or emotional dependency. In fact, it goes against much of their inner programming. Their default response to closeness is to withdraw. Their instinct, especially in emotionally intense situations, is to retreat, protect, and regulate alone. So when they continue to return to you, invest in you, and commit to the relationship even after conflict, stress, or their own discomfort, that's not just affection, it's growth, it's intention, it's love breaking through old fear. Avoidants are wired to value independence above all else. They've likely spent years, or even most of them themselves, staying emotionally distant and keeping people at arm's length. That's not because they're cold or incapable of connecting on. It's because for them, closeness once equaled vulnerability, and vulnerability equaled pain. So they learned how to protect themselves by staying detached, not fully in, not fully out. Always on the edge, close enough to feel some connection, but distant enough to avoid real risk. So when someone with that kind of internal framework starts choosing you, daily, actively, consistently, you are witnessing something sacred. You're witnessing transformation. They are not just feeling love, they are choosing love. And there's a big difference. Feeling love can happen to anyone. Choosing love, especially when it's uncomfortable or unfamiliar, is where real devotion begins. And for the avoidant, this choice costs them something. It costs them the illusion of safety that distance used to bring. It costs them the walls they built to survive. It cost them their old identity, the one that believed, I don't need anyone. Or you may notice that their choice doesn't always look like grand romantic gestures. It might look like staying in the room when things get emotionally heavy instead of leaving. It might look like following up after a disagreement, checking in, or trying again after making a mistake. It might be seen in their decision to keep showing up to the relationship, even when every defense mechanism inside of them says, this is too much, it's safer to run. Choosing you isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet return, a soft word, a hand reached out instead of withdrawn. Even during times when they need space, and they will, the way they return to you says everything. They might need time to self-regulate, to calm their nervous system, to process things privately. But if they come back, if they reconnect, if they pick up where they left off with love and presence, it means they're choosing you in a way that speaks louder than words ever could. Their repeated choice is proof that they're not just tolerating connection. They're learning to embrace it. They're learning that intimacy doesn't have to lead to engulfment, that closeness doesn't mean losing themselves, that love can be both freeing and grounding at the same time. This is where authentic love lives, not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to act from love despite the fear. Each time they choose you, they're also choosing a new version of themselves, a version that believes in connection, in growth, and in healing. They're slowly rewriting their emotional story, from one of isolation to one of inclusion, from avoidance to engagement, from fear to trust. So if you're with someone avoidant and you wonder what their love looks like, don't just listen to what they say. Watch how they keep coming back. Notice how they continue to show up. Feel the energy of their persistence. Because in their world, love isn't proven through constant closeness or emotional overflow. It's proven through endurance, through the quiet, steady courage of choosing you again and again. Not as they have to, but because they want to. And that choice, that's where real, authentic love begins. So if you've seen the signs, if you've felt the quiet power of someone who's learning to love you despite their instinct to pull away, know this. You're not imagining it. You're witnessing transformation in real time. You're watching fear lose its grip and love take root in places it was once unwelcome. That's not just personal growth. That's sacred. And whether you're the one loving or being loved by someone avoidant, remember that real connection is never about perfection. It's about choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. Thank you for walking this journey with presence, heart, and awareness. Keep showing up with truth and compassion, because authentic love doesn't just change relationships, it changes lives. Until next time, stay grounded, stay bold, and goodbye for now.